before in an old Walmart that's, been turned into something else, maybe just for this purpose, I guess. And we're creating tent cities for these kids now too, because there are just so many of them. And there's no reason to take them away from their parents. This is just making us look really bad in the eyes of the world. And it's not like we don't know, we're not already a laughing stock in the eyes of the rest of the world. And it's not like we don't already look bad, but this makes us look even worse. This puts us on a par with regions that have been tyrannical dictatorships for a very long time, like Korea. And Trump is only dealing with Korea because it's another, he's only dealing with Kim Jong-un because Kim Jong-un is another one very much like himself, a wannabe dictator or emperor. And he even dealt with him in secret with only a translator involved at one point. So this is very weird. We have this quote unquote president who is dealing in secret with other dictators, and we're allowing this, and he's saluting another dictator in another picture that I saw on Facebook, and he doesn't exactly salute our own military veterans. He insults them. There was a while back when he was insulting war heroes who had been captured, and he was insulting war heroes who had fallen and their families. And, it was because the parents had an accent. They were originally from somewhere else, but their son had fought in our military. So he is showing himself to have more respect for a foreign military than for his own. And also, our military had to do a parade for him that was very costly to the American taxpayer. So he also has very little respect for the American taxpayer. And I'm not sure what percentage of American taxpayers really want to be putting money into doing these horrible things to children, locking them up in Walmarts and tent cities.
Well, two things. One, I do hope he succeeds in ending the Korean War, that him and Kim Jong-un and the South Korean leader, that they managed to get together and end the Korean War once and for all. As far as denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula, there are no specifics yet. The intention has been stated, but that's not saying it'll come to anything. But in order for the Korean Peninsula to be denuclearized, two things would have to happen. One, the North Koreans would have to ship their nukes out of the country, almost certainly across the Yellow River into China, where they would be turned over to the Chinese. It's not very far out of the theater, but it's not in Korea no more. And South Korea and the U.S., basically because the U.S. doesn't disclose where its nuclear weapons are, basically the U.S. would have to leave South Korea. And again, they wouldn't have to go very far, just across the Tsushima Straits to Japan, whether they're in numbers, and the Japanese are getting more and more irate about that. Just like the South Koreans are getting itchy to have the U.S. gone. The North Koreans don't have any foreign occupiers. The North Koreans only have one ally, a record, and that's China. And China is stepping up. China has been pushing what's been happening from the get. They want the Russians too somewhat, but definitely the Chinese want to be able to send freight trains through North Korea to South Korea and back, to complete that hookup. And you got to understand that Kim Jong-un inherited his dictatorship. He didn't even get a choice. He got it from his pop, who got it from his pop. So he got put into that position. And he's never really been, the only country he's been to is China, other than this. And all of a sudden, he's in South Korea, he's in Singapore, he's seeing what's possible. He's like, oh my God, what are we missing? So he wants to stay in power, but he also wants North Korea to have some of the benefits of South Korea without really understanding the costs of South Korea. Uh, and so he's facing people, many years his senior.
Mm-hmm.
He is a dictator, no doubt about it. And that's probably why Trump admires him so much. He knows what to do about fake news. There is no fake news as far as North Korea is concerned. There, they only have the one channel, KCNA. And it's like, gee, well, why can't I do that here? Okay, so, Trump is a little envious of it.
Mm-hmm.
Kim's playing Trump. Trump's playing Kim. That's why they flatter each other to the skies. They're both the same kind of person, basically. And they both know how to play the game. So they're buttering each other up constantly as a negotiating tactic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're very much kindred souls. I had a hypothesis preached to me that links these two things. Okay, the U.S. concentration camps with the rapprochement and détente with North Korea. What if it works and, Kim Jong-un is still in power? Okay, things don't change. It doesn't become the next East Germany, which you got to understand that the process of reunification of Germany began with this process we're in now, the rapprochement between East and West Germany. And that opened the door for later reunification. It may be the case in Korea. The two sides have to work together in order to be in contact when change happens. Mm-hmm. So they don't have, the absolute isolation from one another. But during the time in which, whatever time Kim Jong-un and his successors have left, Trump wants to detain massive numbers of people. Okay, and he knows that if he detains them in the U.S., other people are going to start looking for him. Looking at abandoned Walmarts and shopping malls and whatever, start looking for him. Mm-hmm. So you do what Bush and Obama did, and you detain them overseas in North Korea. How about that? You send your detainees the next wave to North Korea to be detained, and maybe you take some of theirs, because they want to hide their detainees too. If there's more and more foreigners crawling around North Korea, they're going to want to ship some of their detainees out. Send them to the U.S. Okay.
Well, then, how do the Korean detainees not look to U.S. citizens the same way our own detainees would look? What's the difference?
Well, basically, it's all done on the QT. It's all done in secret. Neither government admits they're doing this.
I see.
Okay. That's what the U.S. government's been doing since 9/11. They'll conclude secret agreements with foreign governments to detain people, like in Poland, in Romania, former East Bloc republics. The Russians themselves ain't playing this game with the Americans.
How do you find out about this stuff? I haven't heard of this before.
You haven't? Look up CIA black sites.
I see.
Look up CIA black sites. Some of those are, covert ops bases, but since 9/11, a lot of them, beginning with Gitmo, are in, and we did eventually find out about one in Poland. I think there's one in Romania and so on, but they could be anywhere. A host government concludes a deal with the U.S. to house detainees, off they go. Well, now North Korea is on the short list to do the same service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
The U.S. to detain people that the Americans round up. Okay, the process by which they would come into the position to do that has only begun. Okay, so it would be a while.
Mm-hmm.
But after that while, then they would be in a position to accept, like the former East Bloc countries did outside of Russia, to accept U.S. detainees. And a lot of that happened, particularly after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Bob, do you know anything about these CIA black sites?
I've heard of them, yes. I've definitely heard of them, and we know it's true. We know everything they did in Iran. We know everything they did in Central America. That's coming out now. I mean, to think that they're the good guys is really naive.
Mm-hmm.
So this stuff is definitely happening. And this is really, I think, typical of an imperialist power.
Mhm.
Mm.
Um,
Which
so
North Korea is not, by the way, an imperialist power. It is a bloody, brutal dictatorship, perhaps,
Right, right,
but
right.
it's not an imperialist power. Okay.
The U.S. I was referring to the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah, but North Korea, yes, it's a dictatorship. You know, it's probably a puppet of China or the U.S. I don't know. Who knows who's really manipulating them?
No, 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 no. They're not a puppet of China. If they were a puppet of China, they'd have never built nukes. Okay. And the Chinese have said from the get, you are under, we are allies. You're under our nuclear umbrella. You don't need these things. Okay. We will step in. If it looks like South Korea is going to invade with U.S. backing, we will step in, just like we did in the last Korean War. And so China's being a little more assertive about its rights that it shares with the U.S., South, and North Korea as former belligerents in the Korean War. They could at any time, which they haven't done, but they could at any time call a meeting at Panmunjom at the DMZ, okay, and be present. They haven't been present since the end of the war, but they could be because they were parties to the war as a former belligerent. China always has a place at the table, long since vacated. The North Koreans themselves are real wary about inviting the Chinese, but the Chinese could say, hey, you know what? We need to have a sit down, okay, at the DMZ, at which we're present, okay, because this concerns us too. North Korea borders China, okay. China takes in North Korean refugees. They too have a thing with undocumented immigrants crossing the Yellow River from North Korea. And that part of China at one time used to be part of Korea when Korea was at its greatest extent centuries ago.
Yeah.
The inventor of their alphabet, of the Korean alphabet, Sejong the Great, there is an obelisk, and it's in China.
Oh.
And it honors Sejong the Great for, coming up with this wonderful, beautiful alphabet that not one word on this obelisk is written in because nobody had been taught it yet. It's all written in what they call Hanja, Chinese characters. And it's like, coming to you soon, a Korean alphabet. And it's in Chinese characters. Well, that's what's the greatest. That was when they had the term for their country, Koryo, from which foreigners get their term for the country, Korea. The two sides can't even agree on what to call the country. In the north, it's called Chosun, which is the Chinese geographical term, which is irritatingly close for the South Koreans, to Chosen, which is what the Japanese call the country, Chosen. In South Korea, it's called, like the tires, Hankuk, okay, the great country, which is almost also a Chinese term if you say it in Chinese Mandarin, is Hangguo. And it's Han, which comes from Khan, like Genghis Khan, which is what the Chinese and the Koreans call themselves. We're the great ones. Okay. Kuk, which is in Mandarin, Guo, in Japanese, Goku, and Vietnamese, Kuk, almost the same. It's that ideogram for country that was simplified by both the Chinese and the Japanese 2 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
So, they can't even agree on the name of the country. The alphabet that Sejong the Great invented is called in the South, Hangul, the great alphabet. Yeah. In the North, they call it Chosun. It's just got to be different. It's got to be different. At least they drive on the same side of the road. Yeah, except there's almost nobody driving in North Korea yet. Empty roads.
So, what, does everybody walk or ride bicycles?
Yeah, pretty much, or rides their broken down buses. Okay. Everything is used to death, it's like this, you got 5 generations that have ridden the same bicycle and 6 that have gone on the same bus, okay?
Huh.
It's pretty threadbare, and people walk a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
There are maybe, 6 cars in North Korea? Well, I exaggerate, but slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And almost all of them are built, drumroll please, either in South Korea, surprise, surprise,
mm-hmm.
or built assembled at one of the maquilas in Kaesong,